should I introduce us?
Sure.
Okay. What should I say? Should I just say hello and welcome to our podcast?
Yes.
Not name.
I'm gonna keep this in, by the way.
Okay. Hello and welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to talk about player freedom, limitations, and class systems. I am Ludwig and I'm here with my wonderful co-host Edvard. How are you today?
Wow, fantastic.
Great to hear.
Nice.
So, I guess...
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, yes. So, I think that player freedom is... a lot of developers talk about player freedom as if it's some kind of objectively good thing, right? Like,
yes.
They say, oh yeah, we want all players with all of their different play styles to be able to enjoy this game, and we want players to be able to approach this in the way they want. And like many things, it sounds like a good thing because, like, yeah, obviously I get to be creative in my own way, and that's...
I don't know. Does it really?
I mean, it does sound that way. I think, like, if you don't think about it, it sounds that way. It's like, oh yeah, I get to be creative. I get to do things in the way that I want.
But the problem with that is that if you take that to the extreme, like if you imagine a game where you can literally do anything, so you have the freedom to go and so you have basically a simulation of the entire planet.
Yes.
Where you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want. Then you basically have life, right?
Yes, and that's the point.
So the entire point of a video game is to limit, like create a like imaginary world that is very limited, where you can experience like piece of that universe or whatever.
Yeah, that was the point that I was trying to get to. Like,
oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. Like, the reason that we play different kinds of games, I guess, is because they give us different experiences, right?
Yes.
And if I'm free to do anything I want in any game, then there's no point in me playing different games, right?
Yes.
It's like, then I might just play the same game all the time because I can do anything I want. But that's not interesting, and that's kind of the point I want to make, that being totally free as a player is not interesting, because essentially there's no gameplay, right? The limitations are the gameplay in a sense. If I play a first-person shooter and there's an enemy shooting at me, right? There are several limitations, right? There's my health, there's my movement, there's the weapons that I have that I can use to shoot the enemy. All of these things are limiting me, and they are what create the gameplay in a sense. So, like, I have health, the enemy shoots me. That means that I can't just run around, I need to take cover, for example. And in that way, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the limitation is the gameplay, yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting, because if you look at a lot of modern games, they have like a lot of mechanics. Like, they really love having tons of different mechanics, especially shooters. Like, they want to, like, if you look at old shooters like Counter-Strike, for example, there's like, you can walk and you can shoot and you can walk slowly. Yeah, but you can't throw a grenade. Like, you need to equip the grenade as a weapon and use it. So like, you're even more limited. But in modern games, it's like you can slide and you can jump and double jump and run on walls and jump through windows, and like, it's not that interesting, honestly. It's like,
I think it's
like, sure, it's maybe it looks cool or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty funny that you brought up CS, because at least, like, modern CS isn't really this way, but old school CS, like the 1.6 and Source, they have like a big emphasis on like the movement, even though the movement is really limited, right? So like in older CS, you have surf maps, you have like jumping course things, but like, even if the movement is limited, there's like a lot of mechanical depth, I guess, because it is limited, right?
Yeah.
so with surfing, for example, it's like if you take a modern game, like you said, they have sliding, wall running, etc., etc. Like the movement actually becomes, in a sense, less deep because you are because there's like a mechanic for everything, right?
Yes.
So it's like, since I can do everything all the time, it's not that interesting. Whereas in CS, the movement is very limited, you're very slow, you can't jump very far, and because of that, the movement becomes interesting because when you, like if you look at old like CS 1.6 tournaments and stuff, you have people be hopping around the map, right? And
Yep.
you don't really have that in modern games because the depth isn't there, because all of that is like baked into the mechanic. Or like
Although there is like some stuff like that in modern
Yeah.
games, I think. Like you do like, maybe it's not that good, but like I'm thinking like Call of Duty, don't you like prone shoot and stuff? Or like
I guess, yeah, you like
do,
spam
you do
crouch and stuff.
Yeah, and you like, so there is still stuff like that, but I think,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why. Like another good example is like platformers, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of modern platformers have like a lot of movement mechanics as well. Like
Yep.
you can jump on walls and do all of this stuff. But if you look at older platformers, or even there is newer ones like Ghosts and Goblins,
Yep.
the remake, and Vulgar the Viking, for example.
Yeah.
They have way more limited movement,
Yep.
which creates way more interesting scenarios in those games, because it's like, oh, this, like, it looks like a simple jump, but actually it's really complicated because you can't just do it, because you, for example, in Vulgar the Viking, you don't have what do you call it? Like
Air
you
control?
can't control the air control.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't change your trajectory in the air.
Yeah.
So like you need to think about how you jump way more.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
actually a way, like the skill ceiling of jumping in that game is higher than in modern games.
Yeah.
Because you have so much control that you can just change the trajectory. Basically, there's no consequences to your actions in modern games.
Yeah. Like if you, for example, in Vulgar the Viking, like if you fuck up and you jump, like, and you see that you're falling into a pit, you're going to fall into that pit and you're fucked.
You're just dead.
Yeah. Whereas with like, I wouldn't even say that that's like a modern thing, because that existed a lot in old games too. But like in a game where you have more air control, it's like if you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter because you can just like control yourself out of the danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
And that also ties into like, I'm thinking of like certain MOBAs, for example, and where they're going. Like the older style MOBAs like Dota and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially older versions of Dota, because the modern is actually not as good in my opinion. But there as well, you see that there's interesting dynamics from the fact that you can't turn your character instantly, for example, and you don't have escape spells all the time. Like there's situations in that game where you're already dead even though you don't know it, which is extremely frustrating to some people. But if you're experienced, it's actually really interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's actually a very, very good point. Because I haven't played that much Dota, but I have played a tiny bit of League of Legends.
Yeah.
And one thing I really noticed there is that you have like equipable spells that like every character can equip.
Yes.
And like most of them are like, they help you get out of a sticky situation. And what I noticed is that I would overextend myself way too much, and then when I was getting ganked or whatever, I could just run away, spam a bunch of movement spells and get out. And like you're saying, the reason why I was ganked was because I overextended myself, right? That's my own fault. And by having a bunch of these movement mechanics, or rather, if I wouldn't have had a bunch of movement mechanics, I would have actually been punished for my mistake, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be clear about one thing, actually, because it might be a bit confusing, or like we might just to clarify one thing, right? It's not movement, right? there are games where you have a lot of movement capabilities.
Yeah.
But let's say, like, for example, a shoot 'em up game, right?
Yep.
There is no, like, in the good ones, the movement is completely like instant, right? You move the character and it moves.
Yep.
And you have full control over the ship.
Yep.
But like there is situations you can end up in these games that you can't control. So like you don't have solutions to all problems, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's a more accurate way to describe it. Like, it's not movement specifically. It's actually that there is not a button you can click or an input you can do that just solves whatever situation you end up in. You actually need to, how do you say it? You need to think,
like
make
the
sure
game
you don't
sense?
end up in certain situations.
Yeah, like you need the game sense to not end up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I think in general, like that's definitely like a topic you could talk for like 10 hours about.
Yeah.
But I think that's definitely something that's become more like more common with like newer games, where it's like the designers, they design this situation, right? And then they design the tool to solve that situation.
The solution,
yeah.
Which is super boring.
Yeah, which is like the most fun games are like where they design a tool set, right? For example, in a shooter, you can move, you can shoot, you have health, etc., etc. And then they design problems, and then they let you solve that problems with the tools you have, right? Yep. Which is not at all what like many modern games are doing. They're doing the opposite, like you said. They say, "Oh yeah, we have the armored enemy. Okay, now we give you the anti-armor gun, and you shoot the armored enemy with the anti-armored gun." Like,
and then you feel smart in quotation
exactly.
marks.
When like the way more interesting thing would be to have the armored enemy, and then you don't have anything that can easily deal with him, so you need to be creative. Like you need to actually be creative.
Yeah. Like the main point is not that movement is because like movement is the obvious example of this, where they like go to extremes to have like, oh, you can just like, because like if you go back to the movement example, it's like, oh, there's a window, I can't just jump into it, right? And then they make vaulting, and then it's like, oh, there's a hole here, and but you can't just like like you can't run on the wall, so they added wall running or whatever, right?
Like, it's actually funny that you brought up vaulting, because once again, if we go back to CS doesn't have vaulting, but it does have crouch jumping, right? Like, even if it's not a very deep mechanic, it's still like an actual like sort of movement mechanic, I guess, because like crouching is a thing, jumping is a thing. You as a player need to realize that combining those two means that you can jump higher over like higher objects, instead of just pressing the jump over higher objects button and automatically climbing, right?
Yeah.
And so like, even if it's not like a very deep mechanic, it's very easy for someone to put that together, and it's very easy to learn. It makes the game way more interesting.
Yeah, there is even more mechanics like that in Counter-Strike, for example, like with the like you can't run in that game.
Yeah.
But all weapons have different movement speeds when you hold them. So you like implicitly have running by, for example, bringing out the knife, which is the fastest weapon.
Yeah.
So what most players do is they just, at the start, for example, they just take the knife to run faster.
Yeah.
Which I don't actually know why that is more interesting than having a dedicated button, but it is to me.
Yeah.
Do you have any like?
Yeah, I think we're
insight as to why.
I think we're sort of getting into the territory of context sensitivity, but why not? Let's dive into it. I think that the reason that's interesting is because it's... Well, let's maybe explain what it is first. So context sensitivity essentially describes like whether an input is dependent on what's happening in the game. So one example of that would be if I walk up to the door and I get a pop-up that says press E to open the door, that's context sensitive, right? Because when I'm not at the door, pressing E won't open the door.
Yep.
And so I think, well, I guess maybe not, because running isn't really context sensitive either.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I guess the possibility space is more limited, and you.
Yeah, I guess because there's like a trade-off, right? It's like,
because you can, right. That's actually true.
Yeah.
There is actually a trade-off. So you, when you hold the knife, you can't shoot.
Exactly, and it also it takes a lot of time to bring out your gun if you see an enemy.
Actually, though, if you look at a lot of modern games where you have sprint button, they actually have something similar where you sway your arms when you run, so you can't shoot.
Yeah, that's true, but it's also very minimal.
Yeah, I guess.
Generally, because in CS, if you have your knife out and you see an enemy who doesn't have his knife out, you're dead. 99% of the time.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas in Call of Duty, that's not true at all.
But that's also for most mechanics in that game, it's more punishing.
True. It's a very punishing game.
Stuff. Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking it might have to do with the fact that the how do you say it? It uses the same mechanics, so that it's not a different thing. It's it's using the system already there.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. Because yeah, so changing your weapon and having different weapons is already a mechanic, right? Yeah. And so combining that, so that oh, now I'm changing my weapon, now I'm running faster. I guess I'm just reiterating what you said. Yeah, it's more interesting because it relies on a mechanic already there. I'm trying to think of an example of something that does that similarly.
Yeah.
But I can't come up with anything.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. I don't have a similar one. But we can to go back to the topics. So to say so one thing we were gonna talk about is the class systems of a lot of games.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna start off here because I have a really good example.
Ooh, you prepared.
Not a good example necessarily, but I've heard designers, right?
Yeah.
They talk about these things. So shooters.
Yeah.
In shooters, a lot of the time, without bringing up specific examples, they say that, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this character could use any weapon or whatever, right?
Yep.
And
I think I know what game you're talking about.
Yeah. And their idea about this is that, oh yeah, if you can pick any weapon or any class or whatever, then that is good because it makes you have more freedom instead of less freedom.
Yeah.
Which you intuitively maybe makes sense, but in practice it never does, because what happens every time is the player always uses the most optimal weapon.
Yeah.
Or gear or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And it's especially bad in multiplayer games where they go where they let you pick anything, whereas the games that have some limitations as to what you can pick is way more interesting in my opinion.
I think I'm gonna bring up an example that I think is the same one. I'm actually gonna name the game here. I'm gonna shame it. No. Okay. And that is I'm not gonna name the actual game, but I'm gonna name an example, and that is Battlefield. Yep. Because I played a lot of Battlefield 3 back in the day when that came out, and in that game, I think it was the M16 was insanely overpowerful. It was the best weapon in the game. Yes. It could do everything better than every other weapon did, and the thing about the M4 or M16, sorry, is that was kind of fine because you could only equip it if you were the medic. So if you wanted, for example, an RPG so that you could take out tanks.
Sorry to.
Yeah,
was it the medic? Wasn't it the assault?
No, yeah, that's the medic, right? The assault had the LMGs.
3.
Battlefield 3. The ammo guy had LMGs.
Bad Company. Yes, you're right. Yep.
So for example, Battlefield has like tanks. And if you want to take out a tank, you need like C4 or you need an RPG. The medic doesn't have an RPG. So to have an RPG, you need to pick a class that doesn't have access to the M4.
Yeah.
Or M16. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, otherwise the tanks are gonna wreck you. Or the helicopter.
So, but that's the thing, because now newer Battlefield games are moving to like a class. They still have a class system, I guess. I haven't really checked the latest Battlefield games.
Yeah, I think they have. Don't quote me on this, so to say, but I think they have a hero system now.
Oh yeah,
so
they do.
You pick a hero, and then
true.
But you can pick any weapon.
Yeah,
which is really bad.
Yeah, exactly. I read something. I think it was Battlefield 6 had classes, but you could switch weapons freely. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyways,
maybe.
The problem with that is that if Battlefield 3 had classless weapon selection, everyone would have just played the M4 or M16,
really bad, yeah.
And no one would have played. Yeah, exactly. The only weapon that would be used would have been the M16. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And so by having classes that can do different things that are limited, going back to the topic of today, you get a more interesting game because suddenly you need to consider the trade-off, right? It's like, shit, the enemy has a tank. What do I do about that? Fuck, I need to play engineer so that I have an RPG so I can blow it up. Yeah. But I don't have access to the M16. What do I do? Oh no, you get the point.
Yeah, and also in that particular case, there might be multiple layers to that equation or whatever.
Yeah.
So you might need one guy with the RPG, but actually you need a medic as well because you need to revive your squad or you need some scout stuff from the recon or whatever.
Yeah. I think another very interesting example that I think about a lot about this is Dragon Age Origins, because...
Yeah, let's move on to RPGs.
Yeah, I've played a lot of RPGs. I kind of love them, I kind of hate them. And one that I really like is Dragon Age Origins. And it has classes. And
right, yep.
There are a lot of RPGs that don't have classes. And I think Dragon Age Origins is a very good example of why you should have classes. Or the benefits of having classes, I guess. Because I'm not saying literally every game has to have classes. But I think a lot of modern RPG developers are moving towards classless is better because there's more player choice. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think Dragon Age Origins is such a good example of why this isn't necessarily true is that in Dragon Age Origins, the mage is OP. It does the most damage. It has a subclass which lets it tank more than the tank or the warrior tank class, right? Also for the people who don't know, Dragon Age has warrior, rogue, and mage classes. Only 3 classes. Yep. And then they have some subclasses, but they don't matter that much, except for the mage. So the mage has they do more damage, they do more area of attack damage, they tank, they have a lot of utility like healing, etc., etc. I think they can poison and maybe not poison, but they can stun the enemy. They're in combat, the mage is insane. Mm-hmm. The reason that is fine in Dragon Age Origins is because the other classes have unique features that only they can use. So for example, the rogue class is the only class that can lockpick. And a lot of the best gear and there's basically a lot of hidden doors and chests and rooms and things that you can only access if you have a rogue that can pick a lock, right?
Right.
And so by simply having that limitation that you can't access some of the best gear in the game and some of the like secret rooms and stuff like that. Because of that, it doesn't matter that the mage is OP in combat, because you'll always want to have a rogue in your party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes the game actually in some way more interesting, because all of a sudden you need to, because like the optimal thing combat wise would be to have 4 mages in your party, right?
Yeah.
But now you suddenly need to consider, okay, I would like to have 4 mages, but I need a rogue so that I can pick locks. Okay, how do I make the rogue fit into this party? How can I, what kind of setup should I have? What build should I do, etc., etc. And then the warrior class is the only class that can taunt enemies, right? So mages, they are, technically, if you build them right, can be more tanky than warriors, but they cannot take aggro from enemies. And so the warrior is, even though it's technically a worse tank than the mage, it's still good because it can take aggro, so that, for example, your rogue doesn't die, right? And in this way, it balances out the fact that the mage is OP, because you'll still want a rogue, you'll still want a warrior, and you need to consider how to make them viable.
To like, technically speaking, then the fact that it's a class system is actually not important. It's the fact that you can't just pick freely. I guess it is sort of that, but you could theoretically make an RPG where you can pick anything, but you have to commit, basically.
Yeah.
So you can't just have lock picking and mage spells or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But then it kind of becomes a class system.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter that it's a class.
So not to be like, no, you can't do it without class. Because I think you can. It's just
absolutely.
It's harder because a class system is actually very simple. Like, it's a really simple way to solve this problem. Whereas I think you can do more complex solutions that does the same thing.
Yeah, I think the important thing about it is that there are limitations.
Yeah,
because one thing I see, like, I don't really play classless RPGs that much because I don't enjoy them. There's also like a lot of, like, I think the new Pathfinder RPG that's like really popular. I haven't played it much at all. Mm-hmm. They have like insane multi-classing where you can like combine any classes in any way you want. And what ends up happening is like every class kind of becomes the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have some sort of weird off-tank DPS magic warrior thingy. It's like you have like, I don't know, 6 or 8 guys in your party, I don't know, and they're all kind of like some weird, whereas there's some weird like hybrid thing that's not really interesting, whereas like with a class system, or like with limitations, as you say, it doesn't necessarily have to be a class system, but in this case with a class system you get the more traditional roles. Yeah. Simply due to the fact that you are limiting the player to the traditional role, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's like you have the warrior, he's a big strong guy who takes a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And you have the rogue who's sneaky and backstabs people, and you have the mage who does a bunch of spells. Whereas in a classless system, all of these classes kind of flow together into one. I think the point I'm trying to make is that developers who pioneer classless systems say that the freedom to like not be restricted by classes is a good thing, but what ends up happening is that every build kind of becomes the same.
Yeah, it limits creativity instead of increasing it, because there is a more simple optimal solution, at least
exactly
like there might be some layers to that, because like for example in multiplayer games, right? Yeah. Sometimes you will have a strat that's the optimal, but it might actually not be optimal because players are not skilled enough. Yeah. But still, it's optimal in the way that everyone is using it, and it's the same, right? And it's boring.
Yeah.
Whereas if there is situational stuff like classes, for example.
Yeah.
then you have, like you said, when you need lockpicking, well, you kind of have to pick the other class, even though
exactly
it's not as strong.
I was thinking of something. I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot what I was thinking about.
Is there any other genre we want to like bring up?
I don't know.
I mean, all of them.
Yeah. Because it's like, yeah, there's like classes in a lot of genres, but it's kind of the same thing in all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way a class forces you into a play style, not 100%, but let's say it forces you into a play style 50% or whatever. So you're forced to, like, if you're a rogue, for example, you have to play sneakily, kind of, or not necessarily sneakily, maybe, but you're not gonna be tanky or whatever, and you're gonna have high damage output and stuff. Or, I mean, there's no rules to it, so whatever the class in that game has as the defining features, right?
Yeah.
But you're limited to that space, which I think makes it more interesting. So if we have roguelikes, for example, if you have a roguelike where there is no, a lot of roguelikes I think actually has classes. You're more
like Slay the Spire has like characters which have different decks and stuff.
Exactly. And I think the reason they do that is because it does force you into a certain playstyle, which is interesting and fun.
Absolutely.
Because if the system instead was you unlocked these new cards, right, and you could use them on any character.
You would just do the same build all the time.
You would just do the optimal build every time, so it would be super boring. But since you're limited to whatever class the cards they have, that's more interesting. Yeah.
I think that was kind of similar to what I forgot earlier, because like I think that the expectation of having a classless system is that people are more free to do whatever they want. But in practice, it turns into everyone being forced to do the same build, like if they want to play optimally, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a class system, if you have 4 classes, there are at least 4 hypothetical optimal builds you have, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in a classless system, there's only 1 hypothetical optimal build. Now, obviously, everyone doesn't play like optimally all the time, and like some people might be like, oh yeah, I think warriors are cool, so I'm gonna make a warrior, even though that's suboptimal. But like
no leveling, or play like use some weird weapon, or
exactly. So obviously those kinds of players exist, but I think most people, or at least I, want to like optimize in a sense. Like I'm not like hyper optimizing, like micromanaging everything, but to some extent I want to make a build that's good, right? That's kind of the point with an RPG. I want to make a good build that will kill a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
And so if you have a classless system, that means that I will kind of be funneled into whatever is the most optimal, or whatever I manage to come up with that in my brain is the most optimal. It's obviously not the most optimal there is, but like most players will gravitate towards one play style. And so the whole point of having a classless system was to allow different play styles, or to allow more creativity, but what it's done is it's actually limited it. It's like completely killed it.
Yeah.
It's like I might want to make a tank, but I know that guy is going to be underpowered compared to like some weird hybrid 2-hand shit. And so I'm going to make some weird hybrid mage 2-hand shit because it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are games that don't have classes.
Yeah.
But they still create that environment where you don't know what, or you're forced into a certain playstyle.
You have an example?
So, Yeah, so for example, old Dota 2.
Yeah.
Where like the mages in that game.
Yeah.
Tended to be really strong early game because the items in that game don't scale with your spells.
Yeah.
So spells do a lot of damage early to mid game, but they're really weak late game.
Yeah.
So you implicitly have that mechanic where these heroes sort of fulfill that playstyle, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's a little bit different, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's more like, I don't know. It doesn't sound like limitations necessarily. It sounds more like just interesting design.
Well, it's the limitations of the mechanics, but it doesn't it doesn't have anything to do with the classes.
Exactly, like
yeah. So it's the limitations of look, this character can only or has a lot of spells, so he can't be good later. Which they have kind of changed a bit, I think. It's still that way, I think, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
Which is boring. But yeah. I'm thinking again with the genres. So what was it? We were talking about limitations and player freedom, right? And then we're bringing up class systems. So what else do we have here? We have RPG games. That makes sense.
I guess maybe we could talk a bit about like the bad games. No, like
I like bad games.
A lot of I'm thinking of games like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry and stuff like that. And obviously I'm not a big fan, but no, not really only like, but yeah, and they a lot of times have like optional stealth, but there's also combat, and like maybe there's some actually I know a perfect example actually that's way more interesting than this. That's immersive sims.
Oh yeah.
Now we're entering the controversial territory. You're getting prepared. Yeah. So I kind of like immersive sims, but I don't really at the same time. They have some problems, and I think one of the problems with immersive sims is this kind of like they always try to let you solve the situation in any way you want, right? So there's often like the classic immersive sim like split is like, you can spec your character to do combat, you can spec your character to do stealth, you can spec your character to hack, or you can spec them to be good at speaking and getting out of weird situations that way. And the problem I have with that kind of design is that the gameplay kind of doesn't, it kind of gets sidelined, right? Because like you have combat, right? But it's optional. You have stealth, but it's optional. You have hacking, but it's optional, and you have speaking. So it's like immersive sims are oftentimes very unfocused. And I think one of the better immersive sim games that I've played, which is not really an immersive sim, it's sort of an immersive sim like, I guess, is Dishonored. And the reason I like that game is because it's mostly a stealth game, right?
Yeah.
It's a stealth game with immersive sim elements rather than an immersive sim game.
Yeah.
And that means that there's like a core gameplay that like the developer can actually focus on and develop and make interesting, instead of having all these weird systems and all of these weird mechanics that you don't really use most of the time.
Yeah, it's really funny with that example, right?
Yeah.
In Dishonored, you have all these abilities.
Yeah.
Which people say are interesting, which I disagree with. That you basically cannot use if you play it optimally. So for those who don't know, in Dishonored you can play it evilly or whatever. So you can kill people, or you can play and sneakily, or basically like you said, it's an immersive sim where you can do whatever you want. But the in quotation marks correct way to play that game is to sneak around, so no one sees you. And for the good ending, you don't kill anyone. And to do that, you don't use any of the mechanics.
Yeah, exactly. There's like... go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that. So, go ahead.
Yeah, because like, for those of you who haven't played Dishonored, there's a lot of mines, there's like guns, there's grenades and stuff, and like the intended best ending way to do it is, as you said, don't use any of that, just sneak around and don't kill people.
Yeah.
And that's the most interesting way to play the game.
I was gonna say, it's also the most interesting and fun way to play the game. Those mechanics are actually not that interesting.
Exactly.
It's because the interesting problem in like gameplay problem in that game, like this, that what you need to solve is okay, these guys, they're walking around here. How do I get around them? Can I go, like, basically stealth, right?
Yeah.
But it's got a bunch of interesting systems.
Yeah, I guess what you're trying to say is that like they have made a bunch of mechanics that makes stealth optional, right? Because you can finish the mission like just going through and killing everyone and shooting everyone and throwing grenades everywhere, as I said. But that's not the interesting way to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because a lot of people talk about Dishonored like those mechanics being an issue, that those mechanics are not used, which I disagree with, because they're not necessary.
I mean, it is an issue in a sense because there's a bunch of useless mechanics.
Yeah, but they're talking about them like, oh, why can't I use them?
Yeah, exactly. And they say like it would have been more interesting.
Not be there. They should just be removed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So people say that the game would have been more interesting if you could use them, but the game is more interesting without them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's more of a pure stealth game rather than some weird hybrid where you're kind of just doing random stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I was thinking of going back to immersive sims. Yeah, because one thing that's also something that RPGs do a lot, which I mentioned it earlier. It's like a lot of immersive sims have the option to spec into charisma so that you can like talk to people and avoid combat.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense at all to me. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I don't really like immersive sims, because it becomes this weird thing where it's like, okay, I've leveled my guy and I've gone into the skill tree and I've picked a bunch of skills that let me not play the game.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, why even have the combat, right? It becomes very unfocused and weird.
Yeah,
because
I think, although to be fair to these games, I think both of us have a bias towards more, how do you say it, more focused games, like games that are not too long and are going in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And exploring that as opposed to, you can, because I guess what or at least what I'm saying is that you can still have a lot of creativity. So the idea of an immersive sim is, look, you can do all these weird things, which is true, but you could do even more interesting things, in my opinion, if it was just focused.
Yeah.
It would so there would be a focus of the mechanics. You play it this way, but there's all these different ways you could do this one thing. That's way more interesting to me.
Yeah. I think one very interesting thing about immersive sims, it's kind of going back to that thing that we talked about earlier with like CS, where you have like you bring out the knife and you run faster.
Yeah.
They're very mechanically driven, right? It's
yes.
It's not like you like
system driven.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is obviously it's the point of an immersive sim, but like it's not like you enter a cutscene and you get the option to kill the bad guy or to save him, it's
I mean,
like
some of them doesn't some
yeah,
of them have that?
yeah,
like
true.
Dishonored
But if
2
I'm
or
talking
something.
about like old Deus Ex or
Yeah.
something like that, it's like you either kill the guy in the game or you don't kill the guy in the game, and that I really really like about immersive sims, and I think that's why they are popular, like because they are they're like some of the most systematic, like they are very complex but they're also very systematic, and I think that's why they are so popular.
Yeah.
But as you said, I think I want a more gameplay focused, like if someone could make an immersive sim that's like 100% gameplay focused, but like I guess that's to some extent what Dishonored is, but we've talked about how it's slightly flawed. But like if someone could make an even more focused version of Dishonored, that would be like one of the best games ever.
Yeah. I don't know about you. The thing about you can kill everyone or not kill everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not that interesting.
I don't think it's necessarily interesting. I think that what makes it interesting is that it's systematic, right?
But
it's
see,
like,
the thing, I agree with that. But the trade-off. So if we're ignoring the most uninteresting playstyle, which is you just run around and kill everyone, I don't even think that feels like the mechanics don't have a particularly like the oomph or whatever, the way of the
combat feel.
Combat doesn't feel nice in that game.
Yeah.
It feels terrible.
Yeah.
So if we ignore that, so if we're looking just at high chaos, which is you kill everyone, or low chaos, but both stealth.
Yeah.
High chaos stealth is actually easier to do, since you can kill people, and killing people is so like the mechanics are actually fairly fleshed out in that sense, right? You when you do that, kill someone, it's fast, and there is spells that let you make bodies dissipate and stuff, so they can't find them. Whereas if you're doing low chaos, which is you don't kill anyone, you have to like make them unconscious, you like choke them, and that takes time, and then you need to move the bodies. But the trade-off is the ending of the game, right? So it's not like, it's a very silly trade-off. It's you play in this way and you get the good ending, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't
but
matter.
It's less optimal to play that way. But it's also the most fun way to play it. So maybe that's fine, honestly. I don't know, but something is off there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think another problem with Dishonored, kind of getting a little bit off track here, but that's fine.
We'll move back after your point.
Is that like the way that if you're doing a high chaos run, so you're like killing everyone, there's a lot of like, you can kill them in any way you want, right?
Yeah.
If you can come up with it, you can do it, right? And that way it becomes like a lot of true player creativity, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like you can be very creative in how you kill people.
It's the sandbox style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas the low chaos, so the peaceful options, it's always like scripted, right? It's like you go to this guy and get this object so that you can like you get like a sleeping potion or something. I don't remember what you do. I played it. It was a long time ago I played it.
Yeah, for the
like,
main objectives.
Exactly. So like when you kill the targets, you're free to do whatever you want. But when you do the peaceful route, you're kind of following a scripted path.
Yes,
and I think that's one of the like main issues with this whole like high chaos, low chaos thing with Dishonored, because you're not really free to play the game you want, as a game developer would say, when you do the low chaos pass. Which, going back to the original topic, I don't know. No, I'm pretty sure it's a bad thing. Yeah.
Which part?
Because I was thinking when I said that, I was like, wait a second, because like we were just saying that player freedom is bad, or not bad, but like might not always be good, and now I'm saying that it's bad because.
So the thing is that I agree with you. The scripted stuff is kind of meh, but those scripted things are way more interesting to do, because they are way more tricky. So in the case of high chaos, where you kill everyone, like you said, you can kill all the targets. So what do? You put down a mine or something, and then you can solve them all the same way.
Yeah.
You just kill the target and you're done. But with the other ones, there's interesting stuff where it's like, oh, you need to make them unconscious and bring them to some place, or you need to find this potion or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you fleshed out that part a bit to where it wasn't so scripted, I think that could work.
I think, because I was just saying how I think it's bad, but now I'm actually thinking it's good.
Yeah, I think it is good. It's just too scripted in that case. Yeah. There is too little freedom in what you do, but it's way more fun to do the scripted ones than to do the not scripted ones, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because I think you sort of touched on it, but I think when you do when you like outright kill the guys, it's kind of cheap because you can like literally just run up to him and slash him and you're done. And just run out of there. Because it doesn't matter, because you're not playing a stealth game, you're not gonna lose, you're just gonna run in and kill him.
I mean, even if it's stealth, you can do that sometimes, or something similar. Yeah. Because you can have like abilities that,
Because the way I was thinking before, which I now realize is kind of wrong and stupid, is that I fell into the trap that we're discussing today. I was like, okay, you could theoretically kill the guy in any way you want, so therefore it's more interesting. But it's actually not, because what's going to end up happening is that I'm just going to shoot him with a crossbow, right? Because that's the easiest thing to do.
You're going to do the easiest thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I could theoretically set up some weird like trap thing which like ambushes him and like does an epic explosion kill or something. But that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna run into his office or whatever, and I'm gonna shoot him with a crossbow, because that's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I think I said we were going off track, but I think we were going right back onto the track, because because as you said, like I'm trying to remember. Like I think the first guy you do, you need to go into the archives or something. No, wait, is it the guy you brand? I don't remember. You like brand him with a thing.
Yes, so you need the earliest ones.
Yeah. So you need to like find the brand, and then you need to talk to like the executioner guy who does the branding or something. I don't remember exactly.
So you need to go to all these places, which is really interesting.
Exactly.
But the high chaos, it's like, I just go up to him and
shoot.
You can shoot, like because you don't want anyone to see it if you're doing stealth, right? You can still do stealth, so you like throw a grenade or something, and everyone in the room dies, and then you move the bodies, and then you're done.
And then exactly. So it's way more underwhelming.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And you like skip half the thing because you need to run back and get some stuff to
exactly. So the more limited thing is more interesting. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not, as you said, it's not perfect, because it's a bit too scripted in my opinion. It's a bit
it is.
It's like you're actually just doing a side quest, and that's about it. I think there's even one guy you kill, I think it's the twins, where it's like you don't even interact with them. You like do something else, and then a guy says, "I'll deal with them," and then it happens off screen. And like that's really no, I don't like that at all. Yeah. That's like really corny. I want like if I'm gonna take the guy out, I'm gonna take him out, right? Even if it's peacefully. Yeah.
Although again off topic, but going back to the immersive thing, it is kind of interesting though that depending on how you play in that game, it actually changes later chapters. So they get harder or easier, or things change depending on if you kill people or not. And I think that part is probably like that's a good part of the immersive sim part of that game, I guess. That it's sort of responding to you doing different things.
I think the problem I have with that is that
it's bugged for one.
Well, it's bugged. But also what happens is that when you do high chaos, the game becomes harder, and when you do low chaos, the game becomes easier, right? I think that's the way it works. And the problem with that is that high chaos is the easy way to play, and low chaos is the hard way to play the game. So
That is true, yeah.
So
Should
like when
probably
you
be
do
the
a
other
high
way
chaos
around.
run, when you do a high chaos run, the game becomes harder, but it doesn't matter because you're just running around throwing grenades and shooting people.
Yeah.
And so
Except for that when you can't stealth.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
true.
bugged. Yeah. Then it's too hard.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I want to touch on one more thing before we're done. And that is, since we started this all off with movement mechanics, I want to talk about those kinds of games actually, where you like the movement focused games. So sort of speedrun games, but not necessarily speedrun games. I don't know exactly where I want to take this actually, but
do you have an example of a game?
Like Mirror's Edge.
Okay.
And what's that? The white. What is it called? White. Neon White, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Games like that where those actually seem to have a lot of mechanics, but they are kind of interesting.
I don't
Am
know.
I
I haven't
wrong?
played
Like you
much.
can move, like you have a lot of freedom in your movement.
Yeah.
For example, but people really enjoy that, right?
Yeah.
So there is something there to the movement stuff. But maybe it's because those games are just movement.
Yeah, I think because I'm trying to think, because there's not really many movement games that don't have a lot of movement mechanics, right?
Yeah, there was this new one as well I saw the other day. There was this what was it called? I don't remember what it was called, but there's a demo up for one that looked kind of interesting. Something Blood, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember it.
I actually have a weird example.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's maybe not a fast-paced movement game.
Yeah.
But it's sort of similar, and that's Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
Okay, sure.
I would potentially... No, I wouldn't really argue that. But like... It's sort of a movement game, right? It's very different to Mirror's Edge. Maybe I'm going into crazy territory.
It is very different.
Yeah, it's insanely different to Mirror's Edge. But it's still like a movement game. Or it's like a platformer, I guess.
Yeah.
But the thing about that game is that the movement mechanic, there's only really one movement mechanic, and it's you have a big hammer that you swing around that you use to move around, right?
Yeah.
But it's very deep because it's like you need to do crazy things with the hammer.
Yes.
Whereas in Mirror's Edge, there's like 50 billion mechanics. You can like jump, run on walls, you can climb pipes, you can do like swing on pipes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And even though they're very different games, like pacing wise, I think I would like to see a movement game like Mirror's Edge that's more
like for this.
Yeah, exactly. That has like a limited deep mechanic.
Yeah.
Like I guess Jump King also like falls into that category. Like because Mirror's Edge has a lot of mechanics, and I think it was a very long time ago I played it. I was like a kid. But I don't think Mirror's Edge is very interesting.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think it's like...
Because I know a lot of people enjoy those games.
Yeah, but I don't think...
And I think there's something there definitely with the... I don't know specifically about Mirror's Edge, but I think that's true about Mirror's Edge as well. Where you have these interactions between mechanics. Where it's like, oh, if I do this, then I can follow that up with this, and then I can do this weird jump over here, and then it's like speed running in normal games, right? You break them and you like do quirky behavior that might or might not have been intended that makes you be able to go faster.
Yeah, I think
it's
maybe
sort of interesting, and I think if you removed all the mechanics from those games, it wouldn't work, right? Because it's the interactions between the mechanics that makes the interesting part.
Yeah.
But maybe it's still limited enough still. I don't know.
Yeah. I think maybe the reason why I don't like Mirror's Edge that much is because it doesn't... I think it falls into the trap that we've been talking about so much. It's that there are a lot of options, but you don't really need to do them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like you can play through Mirror's Edge without doing any cool shit. You can basically just run and jump like very basically and like clunkily and not be very good at the game.
Sure. But if you're trying to play it optimally. By the way, I just remembered the name of the game, Bloodthief. You should check it out afterwards. Yeah. It's basically that kind of game where you run around but there's enemies and you need to go fast.
Oh, I think I've seen this.
Yeah. It looks kind of interesting actually, as that kind of game.
I don't know, because once again, I think it's. Obviously, I've just looked at this game for like 2 seconds now, so maybe it's a bit early to like say. But I think the problem is that I think you might be able to like complete. Obviously, if you're like trying to optimize it and make it look cool, it's fun. But if you're just like playing the game to complete it, you can do it in a way that isn't very cool, right?
Right, but that is true, and I think that game specifically isn't as strict with it. But if I understand it correctly, it has a mechanic where you have to actually go at a certain speed at least.
Okay.
So it has some. I don't. See, it's hard to talk about the game you haven't played, exactly. But I think it has like a mechanic where there's a bar that drains.
Okay.
And you need to kill people like do stuff to not make that happen. It's probably not as strict as you and I would like.
Yeah.
But it's sort of solving that issue, right? Where it's basically a timer that says, look, you need to be this fast.
You need to kill someone. Yeah. Okay.
That
sounds interesting.
So I don't know. I think it's looks cool.
Maybe that solves the problem a little bit then.
Yeah.
Because the going back to like Bennett Foddy, the thing about that game is that it's like really hard, right? So it's like you get to a wall and you're stuck there for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think I would like to see something like Mirror's Edge, but like with that difficulty.
I mean,
maybe this is it.
That's like wouldn't you say that's like N++ or Super Meat Boy is like that?
Yeah, maybe actually.
It's like more
that's a good point.
A lot of motion.
Yeah, I think I haven't played N++, but the Super Meat Boy,
they're similar.
I would say, yeah. That sounds kind of like it actually. Maybe I should.
And N++ is a bit more physics. Yeah, I would say I might be wrong there actually because I haven't played enough Meat Boy, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you have a good point there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Are we?
Ending off topic,
we need a
maybe.
Topic ender.
Yeah.
Don't do classless games, kids.
You can do classless games.
Yeah, you can do, but be careful.
Do it responsibly. No, I think the main point we were trying to get across was that
just don't add a bunch
player
of
freedom.
It's lame if you because we're not gonna keep going, right? So I'm gonna try to, or we're gonna try to wind down, right? But there's these games, right? Like you said, RPGs, where it's like they just added so many mechanics and none of them matter. It's like, oh look, you can do all of this crap, and then it's like, but I can also just auto attack and everything dies, and like brain is lazy. Brain doesn't want to think. I just yeah. You have any final thoughts?
I think the most important point, which is like I think it was what I said in the beginning, was I need to think for a second so I don't lie. I don't want to lie.
It's okay, I can cut the lies out.
Limitations are good.
Yes.
Because without them there isn't a game, right? The game is in a sense the limitation. Going back to what we said about Dishonored, like it is a stealth game because you are limited by the low chaos thing, right? If you don't care about the low chaos thing, it's not a stealth game anymore, and it's pretty boring actually. And I think that's something that like game developers have slowly but surely kind of moved away from. They think like, oh yeah, we should have a bunch of things, a bunch of mechanics, a bunch of options so that the player can express their freedom, or their creativity, sorry. But what actually happens is that everyone just kind of ignores everything and everyone does the same thing. Going back to the Dishonored example, the most optimal way to kill
as well, but we're not going there today.
Yeah.
With the designers,
yeah. But like with the Dishonored example,
clear, like skill as in they can't play games. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So going back to the Dishonored example again, like the most optimal way, or sorry, if I had total freedom in which way I would kill the target in Dishonored, I would just go up to him and shoot him with the crossbow, because that's easiest, that's the most optimal, and I'm a lazy gamer. Exactly. But by introducing the limitation in that you won't get the good ending, which is kind of a lame limitation actually, but it's fine. But you won't get the good ending if you kill the guy with the crossbow. You need to do this like weird convoluted stuff. All of a sudden the game is actually pretty fun. And also, like as I mentioned with the RPGs, like in Dragon Age the mage is OP, but it's fine because you need to have the other classes as well. And the game becomes more interesting because of it. Because if it didn't have those limitations, the game would suck. Yes. And I think that's the kind of point that I was at least hoping to get across today. That limitations are important and that freedom isn't necessarily a good thing. It can be a good thing, but it's not like a lot of game developers talk about freedom as if it's a good thing, which it's not necessarily. It's just a thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think we'll stop there. We might have to revisit the topic again when we thought more about it in the future. But
Part 2 coming next week.
Maybe not next time, but sometime. Or part of another topic.
We'll probably touch on similar things in future episodes.
So I guess, how do you do this? You say thank you for listening. Yeah, thanks
for listening. No one. Hope you enjoyed.
And
leave a comment.
And
if you disagree, or if you agree, but mostly if you disagree.
No.
We would love to hear from you.
Yeah. So thank you everyone, and bye.
Bye.